Hey, good afternoon, Crime Crunchies. Thank you so much for joining me for this first Friday lunch live that I'm going to be doing every Friday. And so I'm really excited to have everyone for my first Friday lunch live. I am Courtney C., and I have had a 27-year career in the media, and now I am bringing you Crime Crunchies, and you are my true crime hungry crunchies. So as we get going, please remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share. I am on my way to 10,000 subs. So your subscription for free is greatly appreciated. So let's just dive into today. Okay, we have, it's been somewhat quiet, but not quiet at the same time. I think that folks are gathering information. The troops are hunkering down and digging in. The FBI, the Sheriff's Department, they're all digging in. And we have probably some focused groups out there that are actually looking for specific things. The Sheriff's Department and the FBI have actually joined forces and have put together a task force. And Brian Enton showed this task force going and talking to some of the closest neighbors, again, to Nancy Guthrie. And while Brian Enton spoke with the neighbors after the task group left, the neighbor was actually pretty protective of the information. The neighbor, specified that he didn't feel comfortable telling Brian Enton all of the information, but did share that the questions that the task group asked were pretty similar to what they had been before, but seemed more focused and almost like they had a line of information that they were going on, and seemed pretty positive because, and this is what really happens is an investigation starts, wide, and then just kind of focuses in as they gather information. And I have quite a few things that I want to go over today, but the biggest thing right now is I had been working off of 3 potential motives, but in the last few days, there have been additional motives that have actually been highlighted, and I wanted to go through those. So I love doing little PowerPoint presentations, so I'm going to continue with that. Helps me kind of get my thoughts put together. So we're going to talk about 5 motives today in the Nancy Guthrie case. And again, I have been talking about 3 motives in particular that we'll review here, but I'm going to add a couple additional ones that have kind of come to light, and I'm sourcing, where I've heard those from. But I have taken a few of my last few podcasts have really surgically dove deep into a lot of these motives that we're going to look at today. And if you are interested in learning more about them in great detail and how I work them out, you can check out my playlist that's in the description, and you can go back and watch those episodes because I thought that they were really interesting in how I was able to put together some really deep thoughts on how at least 2 of the 3 that I think are more potential for motives could have actually been carried out. So let's take a look at all of the motives that have been brought up in the media. So let me go over here. Come here, little mouse. All right, so the very first motive that I feel like has low potential is kidnap for ransom. And again, I've talked about this in the past, but I needed to include it because this one was probably the first motive for Nancy Guthrie's disappearance that everybody initially thought it was. And again, kidnap for ransom, I feel like it's low potential, but with the ransom notes, it threw everyone into kind of a tizzy in the beginning. And so just going over exactly what this is Kidnap for Ransom is very organized, and it's a professionally run group with a financial target. They're incentivized by financial greed. Kidnappers get in and get out quickly and will typically leave a note. And I can't believe how much I've learned about Kidnap for Ransom, that it still happens in this day and age, and not very often, but it still happens. And there's actually a playbook for Kidnap for Ransom. They are available immediately to negotiate, and there's no guesswork involved, which was the case with the ransom notes that were received early on in this case. They return the hostage after payment is received, and we all know that the Guthrie family was very open and came out and said, we will pay. They were going to meet the deadlines. Please give us proof of life. No proof of life was ever given. The communication was pretty much one way. After the letters were shared with the media, the communication was one way, in that the family had to post on Instagram on Savannah's account. Kidnappers typically will keep a low profile and deal directly with the family and not the media. And so it's pretty much assumed that these kidnappers were looking for attention. And maybe originally they were hoping to get Bitcoin money, but after the reward went up significantly, it's interesting that after the Guthrie family put up a $1 million reward, that TMZ has not received any more Kidnap for Ransom notes, that they felt like they had received at least a couple that were from the same person, and that has since ceased. So several ransom notes were sent to the media and not the family, most likely hoax ransom requests, as communication was not typical to Kidnap for Ransom. So again, I am including this motive for what happened to Nancy Guthrie as a low potential, but still needs to be considered. And we may find out that it was indeed Kidnap for Ransom. We don't know. So number two, and I still think that a lot of people feel like this is definitely up for grabs, and I do as well. Burglary gone wrong. I gave it a moderate potential for being part of the motive and the reason why Miss Nancy was taken. Burglary gone wrong. It can be organized and targeted burglary based on first or secondhand knowledge of location or victim. And I don't think that anybody will be surprised that this is within 1 or 2 degrees of Nancy Guthrie and or her family, or a worker or healthcare worker that came into the house. Reconnaissance may occur with a burglary, and we have good evidence to think that this person did come and do some recon. Burglars get in and get out quickly, most likely when the owners are not home. So a professional burglar is going to get in. They're not going to spend 42 minutes. They're not going to walk around the property, be caught on the cameras, and they're going to have particular items in mind when they go in and not spend 42 minutes. Again, low profiles are good for these type of people. So if it is a burglary that went wrong, we suspect that the burglar or burglars may have run into a conflict with Nancy and ended up with her hurt or deceased. And there's a lot of suspicion that if they did run into a physical conflict with Nancy, that there is a strong possibility that she may have scratched them, or they left some sort of biological evidence behind that the sheriff has indicated that there was. And, you know, we're still not sure if the biological evidence that was left behind is a nothing burger like the glove ended up being. But I mean, at least it's still hope, right? So if they did run into a conflict with Nancy and she ended up hurt or deceased, they could have panicked and left with her. And again, if there was biological evidence or scratching, they could have just said, chick, you're out. I'm taking you. And that's the best way that they're not going to catch me. I do think that there was enough sophistication with this operation for any of these motives. There was enough sophistication that they're smart enough to have removed her if there would have been any evidence on her person from their DNA. I do think that they were smart enough to do that. If there was more than one burglar, no one has squealed for the reward. So again, I think that there would be an incentive that if something went horribly wrong and the burglar ended up hurting or unaliving Nancy with the panic happening, they could definitely be hiding and taking the secret with them and not squealing because it's bad. And we don't know how, we don't know exactly what each of their roles was in this. So, there's obviously a motive for this person to not share their role for the reward and until we have all the details, because obviously the money is not a financial motive for them at this point. So again, we're hopeful that there is biological evidence to help identify this person and help them get some of the facts and narrowing, their field of questioning for the task force that was seen by Brian Enton. So let's go into two new motives that, and I'm sourcing where I got them from. This isn't from my little brain, but when I heard them, because I have been, part of the reason why I'm so into this case is there's so much competing information. It could be this, but wait a minute, it could be that. And I've gone back and forth, back and forth. And so when I hear a new motive other than these three, my brain is automatically going into analytical mode. Okay, how does that fit? What else could there be? So let's take a look. And this is one that, oh, actually, you know what? Let me go to targeted. I haven't talked about the targeted abduction. So hold on a second. Let's talk about that first. So targeted abduction, and I do feel like this one has a moderate potential. Organized and targeted, possibly based on a conflict or fixation / obsession with Savannah Guthrie, or the conflict and or revenge with Nancy or a family member. And so I talked about this in depth in my last podcast because, I had a hard time thinking that, who's going to have a conflict with an 84-year-old and have this, horrible thing happen. But it's very possible that there could have been a conflict with somebody. You come across the wrong person on the wrong day and shazam, it's over with. So with a targeted abduction, reconnaissance can occur prior, not financially motivated. This is definitely emotionally motivated. Was the plan of the abduction to terrify the family or to do away with Nancy? And so this is the big question. Was this to terrify the family or to do away with Nancy? And again, that's going to come back to what was the original conflict. Investigators will include Savannah's email and fan mail in the victimology. And again, taking everybody around Nancy, they probably spent a lot of time meeting with everybody around Nancy and getting them separate and asking them questions. If there was more than one abductor, no one has squealed for the reward. And again, this is going to be emotionally motivated and not financially motivated. And again, there's hopeful that there is biological evidence to help identify this person. So now we're going to go into some of the new motives. Murder for hire. Oh my gosh. Just making sure I had everything. Murder for hire. Moderate potential. Dr. Gary Brucato mentioned this motive on the interview room with Chris McDonough last night. I watch them anytime Dr. Gary Brucato is on the show. I'm tuning in. I love everything that he talks about. I have purchased his book, The New Evil, twice, actually. I purchased a hardcover and had just gotten it in my home, and then my home burned down, which was so much fun a year ago. And then I repurchased it on Kindle, so I can't lose it this time. So Dr. Brucato has opined that Nancy could have been in the way of a potential or inheritance or some other conflict. And this makes sense. Part of what has people scratching their heads on this case is, again, that the typical answer when it's someone like Nancy, who herself is not a celebrity, it's typically somebody in her inner orbit that has done this. And murder for hire is one of those potentials. Is there something that Nancy had that somebody wanted? Was she in the way of somebody getting something? And again, that's typically in her inner orbit. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about her inner orbit and some of the mixed messages that we've received about that. But I thought this was very interesting because Dr. Brucato, he feels very strongly that this could be murder for hire. And again, what Dr. Gary does is he interviews all kinds of criminals. He's a psychologist, and he interviews all kinds of criminals. And he created one of the very first databases on serial murderers, red rummers, and all kinds of dark people. Okay, so he has actually been able. He's a good profiler. There's lots of profilers that have come on, but he's put together in the book, The New Evil, he's put together, I think that there are like 16 or 17 categories where he can categorize people who commit crimes, and he categorizes and organizes them by where they fit in his chart, okay? And I should add that The New Evil was written by Dr. Michael H. Stone, who has passed on, and along with Dr. Gary Brucato, but he is working on, I think, 1 or 2 more books right now. And so a murder for hire would fit in the number 10. Personality is a psychopathic, features marked. Murders show malice aforethought. So this would be somebody who, again, felt that Nancy could have been in the way of something and needed her gone for a reason, okay? And there could be more than one person involved, and would not take the risk of squealing for the reward, because if this person is super close to Nancy and is in her A tier, there could be a lot more at stake for this person than just, catching the reward. So it's very possible, that somebody very, very close to her has orchestrated this whole thing for gain. And then the last one I have to give to Ashley Banfield. She revealed this potential motive for SATG. I put low potential because not everything matches, but it is very possible. SATG stands for South American Theft Group. And these are people who've come to the US from Chile or Colombia. They're highly targeted, highly sophisticated, and they will sometimes come in on tourist visas, and they'll overstay the visa, or they'll come in over the border and stay. And they're very sophisticated. They have used signal scramblers, burner phones, rental cars, encrypted apps, along with a recon prior. And they are specifically targeting high-end homes. They're looking for jewels, cash, designer items, and they brag about their stash on social media. There's lots of pictures of this SATG group holding Louis Vuitton bags. They're very proud of themselves. And apparently these gangs that are coming up through South America, and even gangs that are just in Tucson, they're using social media a lot in how they interact with other gangs or compete with rivalry gangs. It's very interesting how these folks are using social media in this modern time. And again, there's pictures of themselves. They take pictures of themselves, but they typically do not hurt owners or kidnap them. so far, but these types of groups are escalating and they are getting more violent. And as of right now, SATG has been identified in 20 states, but I did not see Arizona as one of the states that they're in, but it makes sense that they would be. There are some other gangs that are very violent that have come up through South America that may potentially hurt someone like Nancy. So it's very, very possible that there is an organized gang such as SATG that is behind this. I put it as a low potential just because I don't know. I mean, that would be really, really targeted. It's interesting because Brian Enton has talked about how he doesn't get a very good cell signal in front of Nancy's house. And I thought to myself, okay, well, if it's a sophisticated group, we saw pictures of Walmart Wrangler. He might have had a walkie-talkie in his pocket, obviously sophisticated enough if they're using a signal scrambler. Would they pick a house in an area, all nice houses on that street? Would they take the time to pick a house where maybe the cell signal was low? I don't know. I think that's really stretching, but I mean, I'm thinking about everything. And I wasn't sure if maybe that's something that the people looking into the cell phone stuff might think about, is that, you know, maybe somebody would target a house where there was a bad signal, especially if they're doing a signal scrambler. And we're going to watch a segment here next. I do have to say that I'm getting better at this, you guys. I think that I had used some segments where people couldn't hear the sound, so I am getting better. But just as a quick review, if you're just joining me, again, thank you so much. I have 27 years in the media, and when I was a kiddo, I always wanted to be a broadcaster. And guess what? Nowadays, we can do YouTube. So much fun. So I am really just reviewing, because I'm more interested in looking at some of the emotional cause and effect of these type of crimes. But I like digging in and doing a little bit of research and getting organized. And so I've been really doing deep dives on these motives. And just as a refresher, if you just joined us, the 5 motives that are on the table, again, are kidnap for ransom, which I've marked as low potential. Burglary gone wrong, I've located as a moderate potential. Targeted abduction, I've put as a moderate potential. Murder for hire, I have to put that as a moderate potential because, again, Occam's razor, the most likely scenario may be the solution, okay? And then SATG, I put a low potential, but because typically these guys get in and do the theft and then they get out and they move on. But because of some of the sophistication that we've seen, it could be somebody from a group like this that's very organized and was just doing a theft. All right, so let's take a look at this segment from News Nation. And we know that Savannah went back to the Today Show yesterday and said hello to everybody, but let's take a look at this and see what they talk about.
And former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer joined right now. And Brian, I mean, you know, you've been working it. You've been doing excellent work, but you can't report on. Jen, did we expect too much? Did we treat this like a missing persons case where we
seemed very, very focused, that they didn't.
I'm going to start it over again just to get it going.
That they seemed very, very focused, that they didn't share new information, but they seemed more focused than last time they were here, Chris.
Jen, did we expect too much? Did we treat this like a missing persons case where we expect that flush of activity within 24, 48 hours where somebody saw something on a camera and there's a chase and you try to get to them before something bad happens? Is this something else?
I don't think we expected too much. Look, Nancy Guthrie's life was in peril from the beginning, and you have about 48 hours to make that investigation quickly solved. And unfortunately, that is not what has happened here. And now when I'm seeing all of this recanvassing, it makes me concerned. We know it's already been canvassed twice, this neighborhood. it shows me that perhaps this task force doesn't think that the information was adequately gained and they have to redo it.
I've had great experience with the Cajun Navy. I was surprised to hear that they wanted to be part of this search. A lot of people laugh it off. You do not.
No, I don't at all. I actually think they need to be doing desert searches, the searches that are very close to in proximity to the house. I don't think anybody's been searching there. And that is the perfect thing to do grid searches there in particular quadrants where everybody knows who's searched and when. That's what needs to happen, I think, with these volunteer search services.
Brian, what are your main avenues of reporting right now?
Well, you brought up the Cajun Navy. I went through, they submitted a 42-page, really detailed operational plan, Chris. I mean, they've got 25 dogs that they could bring, aerial assets, and they just want to search the desert, and they just want the sheriff's blessing. But so far, he's basically ignored their request to search.
All right, so let me go back. I think that I wanted to cover this. FBI probes possible internet outage in Nancy Guthrie case. So
it's been 33 days since
one
Guthrie's 84-year-old mother, Nancy, was taken from her home. The war isn't the only reason that I'm not bringing it to you every night. It's because I have nothing to bring to you. The DNA, the ransom notes, the glove, the surveillance videos, so far, they are dead ends, and there's an investigative kind of reconstruction going on, and they're kind of allocating resources. Savannah Guthrie made news by going back to the Today Show staff, which is, of course, heartbreaking. The way she and her family has handled this, especially in the public eye, has been amazing for me to behold, and I wish them only good things. But let's talk about, the truth of what's not being talked about. News Nation senior national correspondent Brian Enton and former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer join right now. And Brian, I mean, you've been working it. You've been doing excellent work, but you can't report on.
For folks that are here, can you please put a 1 in the chat and let me know if you can hear the audio on this? Because I have had some issues with YouTube playing. Just let me know if you could put a 1 in the chat and let me know if I'll put a 1 in here just to get it started. I just want to make sure everyone can hear it. All right, we'll dive into this again.
What isn't known.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, there's been a lot of dead ends, Chris. The glove that was found, we now found out that it's not linked to the case. The DNA actually traced back to a restaurant worker in the area who the sheriff says has absolutely nothing to do with the case. Today, though, I mean, there was action. We see the FBI out here. There's a task force that's been formed since last time I talked to you, Chris, that consists of 4 detectives from the sheriff's office, a sergeant, and then all the FBI agents. So they've got a special task force now. All they do is Nancy Guthrie. And they were out in the neighborhood again today, knocking on doors. They went to several houses right near Nancy's, and then they were in another part of the neighborhood. We're not sure why. Neighbors told me that they seemed very, very focused, that they didn't share new information, but they seemed more focused than last time they were here, Chris.
Jen, did we expect too much? Did we treat this like a missing persons case where we expect that flush of activity within 24, 48 hours where somebody saw something on a camera and there's a chase and you try to get to them before something bad happens? Is this something else?
I don't think we expected too much. Look, Nancy Guthrie's life was in peril from the beginning, and you have about 48 hours to make that investigation quickly solved. And unfortunately, that is not what has happened here. And now when I'm seeing all of this re-canvassing, it makes me concerned. We know it's already been canvassed twice, this neighborhood. It shows me that perhaps this task force doesn't think that the information was adequately gained and they have to redo it.
I've had great experience with the Cajun Navy. I was surprised to hear that they wanted to be part of this search. A lot of people laugh it off. You do not.
No, I don't at all. I actually think they need to be doing desert searches, the searches that are very close to in proximity to the house. I don't think anybody's been searching there. And that is the perfect thing to do grid searches there in particular quadrants where everybody knows who's searched and when. That's what needs to happen, I think, with these volunteer search services.
Brian, what are your main avenues of reporting right now?
Well, you brought up the Cajun Navy. I went through, they submitted a 42-page, really detailed operational plan, Chris. I mean, they've got 25 dogs that they could bring, aerial assets, and they just want to search the desert, and they just want the sheriff's blessing. But so far, he's basically ignored their request to search.
Okay, so I think that's pretty interesting. But the FBI probes a possible internet outage in Nancy Guthrie neighborhood. And so one of the people that Brian
Iran's
to, a neighbor
leadership appears ready to appoint the
person. Let me turn off the sound. All right. So the FBI is looking into a possible internet outage during the time Nancy Guthrie went missing in Arizona after her neighbors reported suspicious stoppages in service. So this is something that's brand new that we've not heard before. One neighbor told News Nation via Brian Enton that his Ring camera history is mysteriously not available from the night Guthrie disappeared. Other neighbors confirmed to News Nation that the FBI has asked them about a similar internet service disruption in the Tucson neighborhood on February 1st. An antenna-like device seen in the pocket of the person whose image was captured by Guthrie's doorbell camera has prompted questions about whether it was a signal jammer, which could have caused a service outage in the area. Whoopsie. Kitty cat. Be careful, kitty cat. Okay. Sorry, that was Zosha, the crime-fighting kitty. Okay, Guthrie was reported missing February 1st, and authorities believe she was abducted. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos told NBC News investigators they're definitely closer to tracking down a suspect or suspects in the case, but I don't have a lot of trust in him. And the next article that I wanted to read is about Nancy Guthrie, call to clear Luke Daly, refuse Cajun Navy help, gets Sheriff Chris Nanos slammed. What does he mean? So there's been so much back and forth with Chris Nanos that I just don't trust anything that he says. I don't know. His messages are conflicting. And before we get into this about the Cajun Navy and the call to clear Luke Daly, let's talk about this. I want to talk about the daughter and son-in-law's car. Okay, I'm making it clear. The family has been cleared. We know the family has been cleared. This is not about questioning whether the family is involved or not. This is my question right now is, I believe that the sheriff is causing confusion. Because when we look at Luke Daly is the person who was detained with the Range Rover. They took the Range Rover on a flatbed, took it into evidence, searched the Range Rover, pulled DNA or whatever evidence they wanted. The Range Rover has been returned to Luke Daly. He was, released pretty quickly. He has the Range Rover back. Now, the son-in-law of Nancy Guthrie, that car, Honda CRV, was taken into evidence within days after the incident. And according to Chris McDonough on the interview room last night, he specifically talked with someone in law enforcement or the FBI and asked, is that vehicle still being held in evidence? And the answer was yes. And he asked, is that vehicle that belongs to the son-in-law and daughter, is that still being shown on an evidence sheet? And the answer was yes. He asked, where is the vehicle? And the answer was the vehicle was somewhere getting repairs, because when the FBI takes a vehicle and impounds it for evidence, they will have to go in to get the brain. They could take the dashboard off. They could take seats out. They could rip material of seats. They could do, carpet, headliner, everything. And so we even saw this with Karen Reed. Her Lexus was held by Massachusetts Commonwealth for like a year or two. And when she finally got it back, they gave it back to her completely torn up. And there was an actual body shop who volunteered and he paid to repair her Lexus and fix it because they left it completely damaged. And I think as part of their punishment for Karen Reed, I think that they purposely gave her back a vehicle that was still torn up, because I guess it's pretty common that if a vehicle is impounded and they tear it apart to get evidence in the brain out of the vehicle, if that person is not guilty, that they make an effort to put the car back together before they give it back to the detainee. And that was not done for Karen Reed, but supposedly they're putting the car back together to give it back to the son-in-law and daughter of Nancy Guthrie. But why was Luke Daly's vehicle returned so quickly, but not the son-in-law and the daughters? Okay. Let's look at Chris Nanos and his communication style. Chris Nanos is asked on multiple occasions by the media, is the family cleared? And Nanos' reply on more than one occasion was, no one is cleared. No one is cleared in this. We've not cleared anybody. And then all of a sudden, one day, Chris Nanos says in a press conference, the family is cleared. Leave the family alone. The media has been horrible to the family. They're victims in this. You guys need to back off the family. Well, the media was only talking about the family, really, A, because it's typically a close family member who would do something like this, but B, because they hadn't been cleared. Okay. And then the sheriff comes out and says, you guys are harassing the family. This has been traumatic for them. Leave them alone. Well, we're only going based on what information you're giving us. And Sheriff Nanos, it's different every time you give one of your 10-minute interviews to somebody. And so he's just a disaster. It's very obvious to me that this guy is a political pundit, and he's not a crime fighter. He doesn't think like a crime fighter. I think he's only thinking about himself. And it's really too bad that this whole situation has gotten caught up in all of that. But getting back to, if the family was cleared weeks ago, the fact that they still have the car and the car is still listed as evidence, still impounded, is listed on an evidence sheet. There's a reason why Chris McDonough keeps bringing this up. And he has been in law enforcement for, 30 some years. These are, and everyone he's talked to, that's not normal. It's not normal that a family member's vehicle would have been kept longer than a detainee, i.e. Luke Daly. And I don't know. It makes me wonder. Again, the family has been cleared. If anything, most of this confusion, in my opinion, if they truly are clear, most of the confusion is being caused by the sheriff, because the sheriff isn't being more transparent, and people are going to run with this. And if they're cleared, they needed to have given the vehicle back. If they're cleared, the vehicle needs to be removed from evidence, taken out of the evidence file, and whatever. And Chris McDonough asked if the vehicle was, because he was told that the vehicle was in a shop for repairs. But he said, where is the vehicle now? Is it on your impound lot? And the person at the impound lot that answered and said, I'm sorry, we're under a confidentiality agreement. I can't answer your question. And so that was actually an answer. So it doesn't really bode well to me that that vehicle is still there. All right, we've got Lisa. Hi, good morning or good afternoon, Lisa. Popular fellow at the voting polls. Yes, Sheriff Chris Nanos. I bet someone else will run now to be the sheriff. Detainee Luke Daly has gotten his vehicle back. Exactly. He has gotten his vehicle back. And that just makes me wonder You know, if the family is cleared and I'm treating the family as cleared, the family has nothing to do with this, then in my opinion, the sheriff has added confusion to this because they don't have their vehicle back. And if we need to treat the family as cleared, then, and again, we don't have to be told anything. We're not going to be told anything. We're not going to get answers, but something stinks. I'm just saying something stinks. And getting back to, you know, the motives that I went through earlier today, we started out with 3: kidnap for ransom, burglary gone wrong, targeted abduction, murder for hire. Dr. Burkado mentioned that this could be an inside job. Somebody wanted something from Nancy. She needed to be out of the way. And the fact that this car has not been released back to the family, I don't know if some of the answers that we've gotten are misdirections, which would make sense. But whoever did this, if they use a signal scrambler, like some of these gangs that are coming up that are very sophisticated, that use a signal scrambler, burner phones, rental cars, encrypted apps, along with recon, the signal scramblers are going to knock the internet and cell phone service out for the entire block. But they're showing, some of the neighbors are now coming out and saying that when they go back and look at their internet history, their internet was down during that time. So it could be an internet scrambler. And, you know, maybe it's a combination. Maybe it wasn't a kidnap for ransom, but it could be a burglary gone wrong with an abduction, but they're sophisticated. So they use the signal scramblers because they're a professional group. I don't know. But I don't have an opinion on this. This is all speculation, but at the same time, my mind goes crazy and it just whirs and whirs and whirs and whirs and whirs and whirs. And I don't know which way to go. But going back to this article, call to clear Luke Daly, refuse Cajun Navy help, gets Sheriff Chris Nano slammed. What does he mean? So if anybody isn't sure, the Cajun Navy is a group that's come out, and I had never heard of them before, but they've offered to help and search places. They have the manpower and the resources to help search desert areas that haven't been searched for Nancy. And so they're offering to help, but they want to work in coordination with the sheriff. If there are places that sheriff has already looked or some guidance, they want to work alongside. They don't want to just go in. They don't want to step on toes. Hi, Lisa, we've got a question. What's going on out of the way to get, it didn't want to go into a recording studio? I'm not sure. Oh, hold on. What's going on out of the way to get, it didn't, son-in-law wanted to go into a recording studio? I have not heard that, but it's very maybe he needed money for a recording studio. It's hard to say. You know, that evening that Nancy went to dinner with them, we don't really know what happened during that dinner. Everyone thinks that they went and played games and had dinner. We don't really know what happened that night. You know, and again, speculation, not my opinion. The family has been officially cleared, but there are question marks that I just, my brain isn't letting go of, because again, the math isn't mathing and nothing makes sense in this case. And we've been given so many competing messages. All right, so Nancy Guthrie remains to be found after her family reported the 84-year-old missing on February 1st, and Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos is facing the ire. Nancy Guthrie is yet to be found after Today Show host Savannah Guthrie's mother was reported missing by her family on February 1st. Authorities believe the 84-year-old was taken from her home near Tucson, Arizona the night before. It has been over a month since her disappearance, and neither the Pima County Sheriff's Department nor the FBI, who are assisting in the case, have revealed the names of the suspects. The PCSD detained and released 2 men over the case, Carlos Alberto Palazuelos and Luke Daly. However, in a recent interview, he noted that that they had both been cleared and were not in the case. Nanos additionally said he was not aware of any other search warrants that had been served on anyone else. Daly was detained after a SWAT raid there. And then Brianna Whitney on X said, Sheriff Chris Nanos on if Luke Daly and Carlos, the 2 men detained and released in the Nancy Guthrie investigation, are cleared or not in the case. In addition to his answer, he says he is not aware of any other search warrants that have been served. I'm not going to listen to him because I don't think it matters what he says. He doesn't make sense. So I'm not even going to make people listen to this segment. Elsewhere, it was reported that the sheriff was yet to sign off on the Cajun Navy joining the search for Guthrie. They are ad hoc volunteer groups who seek to offer relief in the wake of disasters, but in this case have pitched in to try and find Guthrie. Nanos' actions have overall drawn ire from many social media users. An independent investigative reporter covering the case from on the ground there remarked, Sheriff Nanos looking rough and stressed. What does he mean when he says he is moving on from Luke and Carlos? Where's Nancy Guthrie? Many others slammed the call to shut Cajun Navy out of the search. Sheriff yet to sign off on Cajun Navy offer for help. Mind-blowing why this sheriff will not accept help when clearly this case needs help, one person remarked. Another added, something smells wrong, not accepting help. You know, this guy people have worked with him have come out more than once and said this guy is a control freak and he has to be in charge and he has to have the attention on him and just not cool. This isn't about him. Yet another reply to a report of a door-to-door search today asking why can't the family agree for the United Cajun Navy to join the search for Nancy Guthrie even if the sheriffs don't agree. Notably, this is not the first time Nanos has been under fire. Earlier, he faced flack over the forensic evidence in the Guthrie case not being sent to the FBI lab at Quantico. Then in an interview, he had indicated that the DNA evidence was mixed and there could be delays in the case. Nanos had also cleared all of the Guthrie family members from suspicion, which led many to wonder how this was done before the case got closed. However, former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer explained that this could be done after a thorough probe of their digital data to ensure the stories lined up, and also opined that the son-in-law and daughter might have been subjected to a polygraph. They are 2 family members who face the most scrutiny on social media, although authorities long maintained they were not subjects. Guthrie had had dinner with her daughter the night before, and the son-in-law had dropped her off home, making him among the last people to see her before she was taken. The 2 also reportedly lived close to Guthrie's place, sparking speculations online. Former News Nation journalist Ashley Banfield had also reported that he might be a suspect, but those speculations were quashed. Authorities have also taken the son-in-law and daughter's car into their custody. The vehicle has now been reportedly returned, but Chris Madonna is saying that it hasn't, and it's still listed as evidence, and that was as of yesterday. So again, that's very confusing. And this story was updated on March 6th at 8:19 a.m. So I would like to look for another source reiterating that the car has been returned, because according to Chris McDonough last night, he spoke with someone and the impound lot. He spoke with a source as well as the impound lot, and the car was supposedly still listed as evidence. But again, could be a nothing burger. I'm just saying it just seems weird. And, you know, maybe they are repairing it. I'm sure that they tore that thing apart. If they're repairing it, that's the right thing. All right, Lisa, we've got this sheriff doesn't want any help for free. He does not know anything for free. He's a turnip. I like that. What a mess he's making. This should have been all over with and Nancy back. I agree. You know, I don't know if anyone could have solved it, but I don't think that he's helped it. But the good news is the task force is a joint task force between the sheriff department and the FBI. So that's a good thing. The FBI is on this, and the task force is very streamlined, and they seem to know what they're doing, which is a good thing. All right. Again, if you're just joining me, the 5 motives are kidnap for ransom, burglary gone wrong, targeted abduction, which I've gone into depth. If you guys haven't, I have a playlist and I go into depth, especially about burglary gone wrong. I've kind of felt like for a while that definitely could have happened. And I think it was day 28 video where I really go into depth on that one. Day 30 or 32, I go into targeted abduction, but the new one is murder for hire from Dr. Gary Brucato, giving him credit for that idea. And then SATG, Ashley Banfeld mentioned that she talked with somebody, and this is a group of professional thieves coming up from the South. They're called South American theft groups. And there are actually some other groups who do organized theft rings, and they're getting more violent, but typically don't take women, beat them up, or unalive them and take them out of the house. So it's very hard to tell exactly what that is. So let me make sure I've gone over another question that I thought was a good question. The glove that we just found out, the DNA was not the suspect. So the glove that they found on the side of the road, 2 miles from Nancy's house, I never really thought it was going to be anything. I think that the biological evidence that they have from inside the house, which could still be a nothing burger, but I think that the evidence inside of the house has more chance of actually being something. But the glove from 2 miles down the road that they got the DNA back, they found that it linked to a restaurant worker, but they also stated that the DNA from the glove was not, they ran it through CODIS and it didn't link to anyone in CODIS. So if that is true, and the DNA from the glove did not link back to CODIS, anyone in CODIS, how were they able to find this restaurant worker so quickly? It's hard to say. I don't know how they were able to find that it linked to a restaurant worker if the glove didn't link to anyone in CODIS. All right, so those are my goods today. I really appreciate everybody. Again, I have an entire playlist where I go deep into a lot of these motives. I appreciate everybody looking into those. I do think that they're going to get this done. I'm hoping that we get answers. I am staying on this. I think people are still really interested in Nancy and what has happened to her, because nothing makes sense. And true crimers, you guys are smart. You guys are super smart, and you're logical, you're critical thinkers, you know how to troubleshoot. And this is not one of those cases that it makes any sense. And so us true crimers are going to stay on this and see it to the very, very end. I'm glad that Savannah is going back to the Today Show. I think that it's the best thing for her from an emotional standpoint. There's nothing she can do by sitting in a gated community, sequestered in a home with her sister and or her brother. I think there's nothing that they can do. They've done everything that they can. Nobody faults Savannah for going back to the show in whatever form she feels comfortable. I think that that's the healthiest thing for her to do, is actually try to get back into her regular life. And I think that her mother would want her to do that until all of this is done. So, well, thank you so much again. My name is Courtney C. I am a 27-year career in the media, and I've got my Crime Crunchies going now. I am going to be at CrimeCon at the end of May. I hope to see some people there. I would love to get to meet all of the Crime Crunchies. Please subscribe to my channel. It's absolutely free. I'm working my way to get to 10,000 subscribers. I am doing this. I have a quick question. I want to see. Monk's Intrigue has another theory on a video called Connected. I'm going to write that down because, again, I am really looking into all the theories. Monk's intrigue. Thank you very much, Cheryl. Connected, because I am not sure what to think about this. Thank you so much, Cheryl. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I started looking at SATG and then murder for hire in addition to some of the other ones. So if you go back, if you just join me, you can see some of the ideas that I put together. I have this lovely PowerPoint presentation. It helps you keep my thoughts together, putting together some notes here. So I'm Cheryl Butler, 6937. I am going to check out Monk's Intrigue and his video called Connected. Absolutely, because something's going to click, guys. Something's going to click. And we're going to all go, oh, wow. That's what happened. I love it. Thank you so much for all your interaction and comments. I really, really love everybody who comes to the show. I go live about every other day. If there was more information, I'd be going live every single day. But please do subscribe. It's absolutely free. And I hope that you guys are enjoying the content that I bring, trying to do a little bit of a different angle. But I will be back soon with more live content on the Nancy Guthrie case or anything else that comes up. Until then, you guys take care and continue crunching. We'll talk to you very soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.